My son pulled on his jacket and glanced at his phone on the counter. "I'll be right back. 2 minutes." The door closed behind him. The lock clicked. His phone stayed where it was, face down beside my cooling mug of tea. The house settled into silence. The clock on the stove rolled past 12. Then the phone rang. Not chimed, not buzzed. Rang. I froze. My own phone was in my pocket, untouched. The sound came again, sharp, impatient. The screen lit the ceiling with a pale glow. I didn't move at first. I waited for it to stop, for the sound to break the spell it had cast over the room. It didn't. I reached for the phone. The name wasn't saved anymore. I had erased it myself. But the number was burned into me. I had dialed it every morning for more than 40 years. I had whispered into it from hospital waiting rooms. I had memorized it before I ever memorized my own Social Security number, my husband's number, the man who had been buried 7 years ago. My fingers refused to cooperate. The phone slipped in my hand, nearly hitting the floor. When I steadied it, the screen changed. A message. My throat tightened. Air stopped halfway in my chest. I told myself it had to be a mistake. A recycled line. A glitch. Anything that didn't involve reopening a grave. The preview text was already there. "Did you get her to sign?" I stared at the words until they blurred. Another vibration, another message. "You're running out of time." The back door creaked. Footsteps on the porch. I swiped the screen open. The chat thread filled the display. Message after message stacked neatly, all sent from that same number. No photos, no memories, no tenderness. Instructions. Pressure. My pulse hammered so loudly I thought he would hear it when he stepped back inside. The knob turned. I dropped the phone onto the counter as if it had burned me. My hands curled into fists' nails, biting skin. My heart didn't slow. It sped up. The door opened. Cold air rushed in with my son. "You look pale," he muttered, already reaching for the phone. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer. He checked the screen. His shoulders loosened too quickly. "There you are," he said, slipping the phone into his pocket. "I thought I lost it." The relief on his face lasted half a second too long. My voice came out steady even as something inside me split open. "You should lock your phone." He didn't meet my eyes. "Yeah," he replied. "I should." He turned away. The silence that followed felt heavier than the ringing had. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Shadow Channel team, based on real-life situations, to convey lessons about family emotions and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. I canceled his phone line 3 months after the funeral, not because I was ready, because I couldn't breathe every time I saw his name light up my screen and remembered it never would again. The clerk on the phone had spoken gently, the way people do when they know they're standing on grief that doesn't belong to them. "Are you sure you want to close the account, Mrs. Whitmore?" "Yes." There had been a pause. Papers rustling. Keys tapping. "It's done." I remembered hanging up and staring at my hands, half expecting the phone to ring anyway. It never did. The silence settled. Final. That number had been buried with him just as surely as the man himself. So when it appeared on my son's phone, my mind fought itself. I tried to reason my way out of the panic, clawing up my throat. Numbers get reused. Systems glitch. Screens lie. I had lived long enough to know fear likes shortcuts. Still, my eyes kept returning to the counter where his phone had been, to the pocket where he'd slipped it away too fast, to the way his shoulders had eased when he saw the screen go dark. I told myself not to open it again. I told myself it was none of my business. My hand moved anyway. The chat thread loaded instantly, as if it had been waiting for me. No greeting. No tenderness. No mention of heaven or forgiveness or missing anyone. Just lines of text stacked one after another. "Did you get her to sign yet? She always hesitates." "Push harder. Those papers are your future," I scrolled. Each message felt colder than the last, calculated, efficient, written by someone who knew exactly where to press. The name at the top still read, Dad. My chest tightened until the room tilted. This wasn't a voice reaching back from the grave. This was a hand on a lever, and it was pulling my son toward something he hadn't told me about. I locked the screen and set the phone down carefully, as if it might explode if I didn't. From the other room, I heard my son clear his throat. Maggie. Yes. You okay? The word tasted wrong in my mouth. I'm fine. It was a lie, but it was the last one I would tell myself. I opened the thread again. The first line sat there unchanged, as if daring me to pretend I had misread it. Did you get her to sign? I scrolled. She's hesitating. You need to stop letting her stall. Another swipe. Those papers won't wait forever. There was no warmth in the words, no softness, nothing that sounded like the man I had loved for more than 4 decades. The sentences were short, sharp, measured. Instructions. I kept scrolling, my thumb stiff, my breathing uneven. Remind her what she owes you. Don't let her bring in anyone else. The name at the top of the screen still read Dad, but the voice beneath it was unfamiliar. This wasn't grief speaking. It wasn't memory. It wasn't a miracle. It was pressure. My pulse slowed, replaced by something colder. Fear drained out and left suspicion in its place. A sound outside made me flinch. Footsteps. Too close. Too fast. The back door handle rattled once, then twice. I looked at the phone again, then at the hallway, then back at the phone. My fingers hovered over the screen. I didn't know what I was looking for anymore, only that I needed to see it all. If she refuses, remind her who helped pay off the loan. I stopped breathing. The door swung open. Cold air rushed in, followed by my son's silhouette filling the doorway. There you are. His voice cut in lighter than it should have been. I thought I forgot my phone. He crossed the room quickly. Too quickly. I set the phone down where it had been, my palm, flat against the counter, grounding myself. You were only gone a minute. Felt longer, he replied, already checking the screen. His eyes moved fast. Scanning. Calculating. Something flickered across his face before he caught himself. Everything okay? He asked. I stepped back and folded my arms, creating space between us. That depends, I said. He hesitated. On what I watched, his jaw tightened, watched him wait for me to explain, instead of offering anything himself. On why someone is telling you how to handle me. The air between us hardened. He left again 10 minutes later. No apology. No explanation. Just a distracted glance and a promise to come back in the morning. The door closed. The lock slid into place. The house felt different without him in it. Not quieter, sharper. The folder was still on the table where he'd set it down earlier. Brown and ordinary, the kind you use when you don't want attention. I pulled it toward me and opened it. The first page looked harmless enough. Legal language, margins tight. Signatures indicated with small printed arrows. I skimmed once, then again, slower. My name appeared more times than it should have. So did his. I turned the page. Then another. My stomach tightened. This wasn't an update. This wasn't housekeeping. This wasn't about records or corrections or anything that ended with me owning what I already owned. This was a transfer. Every property listed in clean rows. Each address spelled out in full. Each parcel tied neatly to a single outcome. Ownership reassigned. I flipped to the last page and stared at the empty line waiting for my signature. One stroke of a pen, and the rental income that kept me independent would be gone. The accounts that paid my taxes, my insurance, my groceries would move out of my control and into someone else's hands. I heard his voice from earlier, casual and practiced. It's just paperwork. My chest tightened as I gathered the pages back into a stack, as if that could undo what they were. I thought of the messages on his phone, the pressure, the urgency, the talk of time running out. This wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. Someone had planned this, carefully, quietly. They had chosen the timing, the words, the number that would shake me enough to hesitate and trust enough to sign. I closed the folder and pressed my hand flat against it, steadying myself. I hadn't signed. Not yet. The relief lasted only a second before it gave way to something heavier. Because if I had almost signed it, meant they thought I would, and that meant they were counting on me to fail myself. I didn't wait for morning. By the time the sun came up, I was already sitting across from the man who had handled my estate paperwork for more than a decade. Gray hair, steady hands, the kind of calm that comes from seeing too many people panic too late. He read in silence. I watched his eyes move page by page, then lift to me without softening. You did the right thing by not signing. I slid my son's phone across the desk. That number, I said. It shouldn't exist. His fingers paused on the screen. You canceled the line yourself. I stood at the counter and did it. 3 months after the funeral. I remember the date because I couldn't stop shaking. He nodded once, then turned to his computer. Keys clicked. A pause. Then another. The number is active. The words landed hard. That's not possible. It is, he replied evenly. It was reactivated legally. My mouth went dry. Under whose name? He read from the screen, careful, precise. Not your son's. The room felt suddenly unstable. Say that again. The account is registered to a different individual, he repeated. Male. Local. No relation listed. Something loosened in my chest. Just enough to hurt. So he didn't do this. He may not have started it, the attorney said. That doesn't mean he isn't involved. I looked down at my hands. They were steady now, too steady. Someone bought my husband's number, yes, and used it. Yes, to push my son, yes. The attorney leaned back. This kind of thing takes planning, technical knowledge, confidence, someone who knows how to sound convincing, and how to apply pressure without leaving fingerprints. I swallowed. For a moment, I said quietly, I thought I had raised a monster. He didn't interrupt. But monsters usually hide behind someone else first. He closed the file and slid it back to me. Whoever did this didn't act alone. The words stayed with me as I left. If my son wasn't the one pulling the strings, then someone had taught him where to stand and when to pull. He came back that evening with a bag of groceries he didn't need. I figured you hadn't eaten, he said, setting it down between us like a peace offering. I didn't touch it. You're working late now, I asked. Things are complicated, he replied, already glancing at his phone. Deadlines. Whose deadlines? He smiled without warmth. Mom, please. He stepped into the hallway to take a call. The door to the spare room clicked shut. His phone lay on the table. Face up this time. Unlocked. My hand moved before my courage caught up. The thread opened where I had left it. His replies stared back at me. She's stalling again. I'll handle it. Just give me a little more time. The words pressed against my chest, harder than any threat ever could. I scrolled slower, now deliberate. She trusts me. She'll sign. A sound escaped me, thin and unfamiliar. Another message sent minutes earlier. I told her it's routine. She doesn't need a lawyer. I lifted my phone and took a picture. Then another and another. The door down the hall opened. I locked the screen and placed the phone back exactly where it had been. He returned, casual, rehearsed. Everything okay? I met his eyes. You've been busy. Trying to keep things together, he said. For both of us. I nodded once. That's generous. His jaw tightened. You don't understand how close we are. To what? He hesitated. Long enough to be noticed. Fixing things, he said. I leaned back in my chair. You're right, I said. I don't understand. He exhaled, frustration leaking through. You never do. You always want control. The word landed wrong. I want clarity, I said. There's a difference. He looked away. Just sign the papers, he muttered. Then all of this stops. The room went still. I stood slow and steady. All of this, I said, ends the moment you stop lying to me. His mouth opened. Closed. Silence filled the space where trust used to live. The investigator didn't bother with pleasantries. He placed a thin folder on the table between us and waited until I opened it myself. "You're not dealing with a ghost," he said. "You're dealing with someone who knows exactly how fear works." The name meant nothing to me at first. A common first name, a forgettable last one. "He works in systems," the investigator continued. "Network security, data recovery. He knows how to make a number look like it's coming from anywhere." I slid the page back. And the history. 2 civil complaints. One dismissed, one settled quietly. His fingers tapped the folder. Always the same pattern. Pressure. Deadlines. Someone else taking the visible risk. I swallowed. My son. He didn't contradict me. He didn't invent the scheme the investigator said. But he agreed to play his part. "Because he was afraid," I said. "Because he owed money." The words landed heavier than I expected. "How much?" He checked his notes. "Enough to ruin him. Enough to make threats sound like solutions." I closed my eyes. Images flickered, missed calls, late nights, that restless energy I'd mistaken for stress. "He told you what would happen if he didn't cooperate," the investigator added. I nodded. "He called it pressure. Like it was weather." The investigator leaned forward. "This man doesn't need to touch anyone to hurt them. He uses time, isolation, silence." A pause. "Your son still made choices." "I know. He could have come to you. He didn't. He chose the plan instead." And I stared at the folder again, at the clean type and careful dates. "He used my husband's voice," I said quietly. "He used a number," the investigator corrected. "But the effect is the same." I straightened. "What happens next? That depends on what you want." I thought of the messages, the lies, the way my son's voice had changed when he told me to sign. "Prepare everything," I said. Quietly. The investigator nodded once. As he left, the truth settled into place. My son hadn't been forced. He had been cornered, and he had chosen the corner over me. I called him before doubt could catch up. "I spoke to my lawyer," I said. The silence on the other end lasted a beat too long, and he asked. He reviewed the documents. Another pause. A breath held. "He says they're in order." I heard the shift immediately, relief breaking through caution. "So you'll sign?" "Yes." The word tasted like rust. "When tomorrow," I replied. "Here, at the house." "That's not necessary," he said quickly. "We can meet anywhere." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "If this is as simple as you keep saying, you can come to me." He exhaled. "Fine. I'll bring someone to witness." "I already have that covered." His voice sharpened. "You don't need—" "I do," I cut in. "If I'm giving up control, I want it done properly." The line went quiet again, then softer. "Careful. You're doing the right thing." "I know." I ended the call before he could say more. The next hours moved with precision. One message sent, one document copied, one quiet knock answered by someone who didn't ask unnecessary questions. Everything stayed small, controlled. No raised voices, no accusations, no warning. By the time night fell, the papers were laid out exactly where they would expect them to be. The chairs were arranged, the recorder hidden, the witnesses waiting out of sight. I sat alone at the table and folded my hands. I thought of the first message, the number, the pressure dressed up as guidance. They believed they had me cornered. They believed desperation made people careless. What they didn't understand was that I had spent a lifetime managing households, contracts, losses, and grief without falling apart. I didn't need to rush. I didn't need to beg. I only needed them to walk through the door, believing the game was over. And I was ready when they did. The doorbell rang exactly on time. My son stepped in first, shoulders squared, smile fixed too carefully in place. A man followed him, suit, pressed briefcase held just a little too tight. "This is the notary," my son announced. "Let's get this done." I gestured toward the table. "Before we begin, I'd like you to meet my attorney." The smile slipped. The man beside my son hesitated. "Just a fraction. Enough." "That wasn't part of the plan," my son muttered. "Plans change," I replied, "especially when signatures are permanent." My attorney stood and extended a hand that went unanswered. "Let's start with credentials." The notary cleared his throat. "Of course. Your commission number," my attorney continued, calm and precise. "And your state-issued seal." The briefcase clicked open. Papers rustled. Too many. Too fast. My son shifted. "This is unnecessary." "If everything is legitimate," I said, "it won't take long." The notary's hand trembled as he pulled out a laminated card. My attorney leaned closer. "This expired 3 years ago." Silence crashed into the room. "That's a mistake," the man snapped. "There must be—" "Sit down," my attorney said quietly. The notary didn't. My son stepped forward. "Mom, stop this. You're overreacting." I pushed the folder toward him instead. "I read every page I said. I photographed every message." His face drained of color. "You went through my phone." "You handed me the key." The notary backed toward the door. "I should go." A voice spoke from behind him. "You're not going anywhere." The investigator stepped into view, badge catching the light. The notary froze. My son sank into the chair. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he whispered. "It went exactly as far as you pushed it," I replied. The investigator moved in controlled, practiced. Hands were raised, words spilled, excuses collided. I stayed seated. I watched it end. When the room finally emptied, the papers remained untouched. So did I. The charges were filed without ceremony. The investigator laid out the facts in a voice that didn't bend for anyone. The fraudster's name was read aloud, then read again, then written down where it would stay. My son sat beside me, hands folded, listening to consequences arrive one sentence at a time. "I'll cooperate," he said finally. "All of it." I didn't reach for him. "Didn't. That's between you and them," I replied. "Not me." Later, my attorney spread fresh documents across the table. New dates, new terms, clear lines drawn where there had been none before. "You're protected now," he said. I was protected before I answered. I just forgot. My son lingered by the door. "I didn't lose you," he said, trying to make it sound certain. "You lost access," I said. "That's not the same thing." He swallowed. "What happens now?" "You rebuild," I told him. "On your own terms, not mine." He nodded once, as if accepting a sentence he couldn't appeal. Morning came quietly. No vibrations, no screens lighting up with borrowed names. I sat at the table where the papers had waited for my signature and slid them into a drawer I rarely opened. The phone stayed silent. I poured coffee and didn't check the time. When my attorney called later, his voice was steady. "Everything is finalized." "Good," I said. I stood in the doorway as my son left, not turning back, not asking for more than I was willing to give. What remained was not forgiveness and not punishment. It was something sturdier. I kept the properties. I kept my independence. I kept the right to say no without explaining myself. Most of all, I kept the life I built when no one was watching and the peace that comes from choosing it again.